Welcome back to the channel that tries to fix broken electronics and keep them out of the landfill. Today I'm working on this PlayStation 5 that I've had for quite a while. I've worked on it before in a previous video. It had a USB port that was damaged and it turned on but didn't display anything to the screen, so I went ahead and changed out the HDMI port because I had some lying around. That didn't fix the problem. It still turns on, but it still doesn't show anything on the screen. So now I'm going to try and replace the HDMI encoder because from my research, it seems like that's the likely cause of the problem, even though I didn't find any other faults on the board or any noticeable faults around the HDMI encoder. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a shot. These encoders are pretty pricey for the PlayStation 5s and they take a while to ship, so I've just now gotten those in and also worked up the courage to actually do this because the PlayStation 5 turns on and I'm afraid my efforts to replace the encoder chip are going to create a situation where it no longer even does that, and that would just put me further in the hole on this particular console. But you're never going to learn if you don't try to do hard things that you've never done before. And hey, I got to start somewhere. So join me and hopefully together we can fix this PlayStation 5 and get it into working condition. First, let's test it out and make sure it does actually still turn on. It does. Blue light. And it goes to a white light, but nothing on screen. So no signal. Okay, so now we'll get it under the microscope and take a look at that encoder chip. So I did go and check some of the components around the HDMI port and the encoder chip just to see if I could find any shorts or anything that stuck out as possibly causing an issue. I couldn't find anything, and when I went back and looked at the video that I previously done on this particular PlayStation 5, I realized that the HDMI port had already been replaced when I got it. At least it had been attempted to be replaced. I also went through and checked all of the connectors on the HDMI port itself. There were a few that were a little high, but nothing too crazy. So with nothing else to go on, I think the HDMI encoder is the next place to look. Okay, so nothing sticks out that I can see. Maybe someone else sees something different, but I'm just going to go ahead and replace that HDMI encoder chip because that's the next step. Wish me luck. Okay. Shoot the board up a little bit around here. Okay. These came off pretty simply. Guess I will add a little bit more solder to these pads. I don't know if I can get anything out of it. But lead. There we go. I don't think anything. Right there. Okay, so just a tiny bit of flux on the inside here. Maybe I'll add a little bit more to it, and then a little bit just along the edges here. Not a lot. I don't think you need a lot for these. I always am nervous when I do something new. I'm not gonna lie. Like, just a little bit, like my nerves get racked. They're like, oh gosh. But here we are. New chip. Panasonic. Facing this way because the dot, the arrow's there for it, and that's just the way it's supposed to face. So let's get it into position. Okay. Now, it's in pretty good position. Let me find my better. No, not these. These. There we go. Okay. Now, pretty good and lined up. My issue is always, when I squeeze it down, when I push it down, it goes everywhere. Gets misaligned. It's so frustrating. But here we go. I'm gonna turn the air down a little bit because I don't want it to blow the chip away. It's a bigger chip though, so I'll wait for it to like settle down and then push down on it. Okay, there we go. See, I fucking told you. See? It does look lined up though. Hopefully. 'Cause but boy, that is what I do. I have such unsteady hands. Such unsteady hands. But that side's lined up. And hopefully Side's lined up. It's not connected though. But this side's lined up. As is this. So I think, you know, it's lined up. I'll give it that. I'm gonna go around it with my iron. I'm gonna go around it with my soldering iron just to make sure all the pads are connected, but that's actually lined up pretty well. I like that. Yeah, I do not have steady hands, guys. I don't know what I need to do about that. It's just my nerves. Once it starts happening, I get nervous. If you'll notice on this revision, it's a newer revision, it doesn't have all the capacitors around it. So that threw me off at first. I was seeing pictures like, oh, I'm missing a lot of capacitors. But I guess this revision, for some reason, they decided they didn't need it. So your encoder might look somewhat different than this one. All right, well, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna try it out. Ready for the moment of truth? Hopefully it still turns on. It does. Ooh, but that's it, huh? No fan. Spin. Ooh. Okay. I get one beep. And that's it. Okay. All right, so yeah, didn't turn on. Beeps, but doesn't turn on. So I think I'm gonna check the encoder just to see if there's anything that's obviously not connected properly, and make sure that we have really good connections all around. So when I put it back together and tried testing it out, you see it didn't turn on properly. So I had to go back through and just check every little connection on that HDMI encoder chip, which is very tedious because for some reason my iron just is not wanting to transfer over the solder very well, and I was having a lot of difficulty. So actually one time when I went through, I had absolutely no power, not even a beep when I tried to turn it on. And 3, 2, 1. Ooh. Even less of a beep than it was before. I got every pad on that chip with the connection. I went around and like reflowed the chip using the hot air station, and then touched up a few that were still not connected. And that brings us to this. All right, here, fingers crossed, because I don't know where to go from here. And if it doesn't work, then this is another failure. Power, light, fan spin. Are we gonna get anything on the TV? I was gonna go to white. Okay, we got white light. But, so we replaced the HDMI encoder. We have a white light. It does still come on, which is nice. But still no signal. All right, well, I changed the HDMI encoder, and after a little bit of issues with it not connecting properly and causing the console not to turn on, it does still turn on, goes to a white light, but I still get no signal on the monitor, which means the issue is still there, and I don't know what the issue is. I feel like the HDMI port's connected properly, so I don't think it's that. I don't think it's the HDMI encoder because I changed it out and it's still not working. I think if it was a bad encoder, it might give me some other error where it just doesn't turn on like it was trying to do, but that was because it wasn't connected properly. So now I don't know where to go from there. If anyone has any suggestions, please let me know down in the comments, because I'd like to get this one working. I've done a lot to it, and I would really like to see it get back to a working state. And yeah, that was very, very frustrating, but a lot of good just experience, changing out an HDMI encoder chip, trying to figure out how to work with small components. It's such a pain, and if you noticed in the video, my hands are just not very steady when I'm doing that. So that's something I need to obviously work on to get better at plopping these chips on in the right spot and tapping them just enough without knocking them all out of the way, which is what I tend to do when my hands are shaky. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something useful from it. Maybe just, that you have to go back over your work sometimes and make sure you did it right, because that could give you some issues down the road, which it did here. Hopefully someone will give me some pointers or tips, and I'll do some more research to see if there's anything I can do to try and get this PlayStation 5 working again. Obviously, if not, I could always just sell it on eBay for parts, which is what I bought it for, and I'd probably get about what I paid for it. So not the worst thing. It still does turn on, which is a positive, but it doesn't work, which kind of is the whole point of this channel and doing console repair. But this was fun, even though it might not have seemed like it at some times. It was a good experience, and I definitely look forward to working on more problems like this in the future. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll catch you in the next one.